She arrived before the others. The benches outside the base hospital were still wet from last night's fog, and the morning light hadn't reached the parking lot yet. But she was there, second bench from the left, near the flagpole. A canvas bag sat by her boots. Its straps were cracked. One zipper had been sewn shut with black thread. There was a patch on the side, barely visible under years of wear, dark, frayed, and shaped like a shield. She didn't check her phone. Didn't look up when the first trucks passed through the gate. Her jacket was zipped to the neck. Nothing on it but a name strip, long since faded. No rank, no insignia. Just fabric worn thin in the elbows and creased across the chest like it had been folded too many times. People walked past her. Medics, officers, recruits with badges clipped high and coffee cups in hand. No one stopped. A few glanced. One young corpsman muttered, "Visitor drop-offs on the other side," but not loud enough for her to hear. She didn't move. Only the fingers of her right hand tapped once against her knee. A rhythm only she understood. 30 feet away, a row of folding chairs had been set up under a canopy. "Veterans Intake and Resource Briefing," printed on a sagging vinyl banner. Most of the seats were still empty. She didn't go over, just sat still, waiting. The canvas bag leaned slightly against her boot. The patch shifted into the light. If anyone had been looking close, they might have seen it. The outline of a trident, faint but unmistakable. But no one was looking. Not yet. By 0800, the area filled in. Mostly men. Mostly younger. Some in uniform, some in crisp polos with service logos on the sleeve. The kind of crowd that stands tall, talks loud, and shakes hands too hard. They didn't notice her. The folding chairs filled one row at a time. She stayed where she was, off to the side, still by the flagpole. Her name hadn't been called. No one offered a clipboard. One volunteer glanced over, squinting at her jacket. "You need the family services tent, ma'am?" She didn't respond. He tried again, half smile, half dismissal. "Spouses are over there by the wellness table." Still nothing. He nodded awkwardly and walked off, muttering something under his breath. Closer to the main tent, 2 SEAL candidates were flipping through orientation packets. One of them, tall, buzzcut, with that unearned swagger that still clings after BUD/S, nudged the other and pointed toward the bench. "Looks like somebody's grandma missed the shuttle." The other smirked. "Bet she's here for a benefits handout." They laughed, not cruelly, just young. Loud the way people get when they haven't learned silence means more. She didn't react. Her eyes stayed fixed on a fixed point, a mark on the cement near the edge of the walkway. She traced it once with her boot, then stopped. The canvas bag leaned against her side. One strap had slid low, revealing more of the patch. It wasn't decorative. It wasn't new. It was the kind of patch that didn't get sold at surplus. Across the lot, someone noticed. Not the officers. Not the VA volunteers. A younger SEAL, second to her clean uniform, hands folded behind his back, had turned away from the crowd. His eyes landed on the bag. He blinked once, then again. He took a step toward her, but stopped. There was something about the way she sat, the stillness of it. He watched the patch. The trident was worn down, yes, but the stitch pattern was right. The angle of the rocker above it, the faded number below. Not issued. Earned. He didn't speak. He just stood there, watching. Part 3. The External Conflict. By mid-morning, the briefing began. A retired colonel took the mic under the canopy, voice practiced, jacket full of ribbons. He welcomed the attendees, cracked a few jokes about aging knees and VA paperwork. Most laughed. She didn't move. The SEAL candidate, the one who'd seen the patch, stayed behind the last row of chairs, eyes drifting back toward her between lines of the speech. The others weren't paying attention. They were focused on donuts, brochures, comparing deployments. Then it happened. A volunteer, maybe 22, clipboard under one arm, was handing out intake forms when he spotted her on the bench. He walked over, glancing down at her boots, the jacket, the bag. "Ma'am, this area's for veterans," he said. His tone wasn't cruel, just certain. She looked up at him for the first time. Her expression didn't change. He hesitated, then added with a half laugh, "Family check-in is on the other side. Unless you served?" No reply. He squinted at her name badge. "Keen, right?" Still silence. He glanced at the bag. Something about the patch made him shift his stance, but he shrugged it off. "Look, no offense," he said, voice lowering, "but this side's for combat vets. Front line. The trident caught the light. Worn gold thread in a pattern no civilian would recognize. Before she could speak, though she likely wasn't going to, the younger SEAL stepped forward. He didn't raise his voice. Just placed one hand lightly on the volunteer's shoulder. "She's fine where she is." The volunteer turned. "Sir, I'm just trying to." "She's fine," he repeated. There was something final in the way he said it. The volunteer stepped back, confused. Not scolded, just dismissed in return. The younger SEAL turned slightly toward her. "Not too close." "Ma'am," he said quietly. She looked at him for half a second, then nodded once. It was the kind of nod that says, "You noticed." He didn't say more, just stayed nearby. Not guarding, just present. The briefing continued behind them, but the air had shifted. One small moment, one quiet correction, and nothing felt the same. The rest of the morning moved on. Pamphlets were handed out. Names were called. A slideshow flickered against the back wall of the tent, bullet points on VA access and training stipends. She didn't move from the bench. The young SEAL stayed close. He didn't speak again, didn't intrude, just kept her within sight. At one point, he took a seat on a low retaining wall across from her, elbows on knees, fingers interlaced. He was thinking. Something about the way she sat, the quiet posture, the stillness of it, not passive, not fragile, intentional. He turned and caught one of the senior corpsmen walking by, pulled him aside. "Hey," he said, "that woman over there, with the bag." The corpsman followed his glance, then shrugged. "No idea. Showed up early. Not on the brief list. You know her?" "No," the SEAL said. "But I saw the patch." "Which one?" The SEAL didn't answer at first, just held his hand flat, then traced the air, one downward arc, then a trident. "A rocker. A number." The corpsman blinked. "Could have been surplus. Not this one." He nodded toward her again. "That jacket's been folded in a ruck." The corpsman watched a moment longer, then shook his head. "Ask admin." He didn't. Instead, the SEAL waited until the crowd drifted toward the food tables. Then he walked to the far end of the intake tent where a dusty bulletin board stood near a printer station. Taped to the corner, half covered by flyers, was a list of last-minute attendees, handwritten. 3 lines down it read, "Keen L, JSOC retired." No commendation listed. He stared at the letters. No rank. No unit. Just that one acronym. JSOC? Most people wouldn't think twice. Probably assume it was a typo, a misfile. But he knew better. You don't just write JSOC on a line. Not unless someone put it there. He stepped back from the board and looked across the room. She was still on the bench. Still watching. And for the first time, he didn't see someone waiting. He saw someone watching back. It happened during the coffee break. Most of the crowd had moved to the courtyard tables. Paper plates. Military-grade lemonade. Laughing that was just a little too loud. She stayed on the bench. The bag still at her feet. The younger SEAL hadn't gone far. He stood under the awning now, posture loose but eyes steady. Still watching. Then another figure entered the scene. Older. Dress blues. Silver eagle on his collar. A ribbon stack so neat it made conversations quiet a little as he passed. Colonel McCaffrey. Base liaison. Special operations detail. He walked toward the admin desk with purpose, but paused when he caught her in his periphery. Just a glance, then another. He stopped. 2 seconds passed. Then he turned fully and faced her. The crowd didn't notice, but the young SEAL did. He straightened. The colonel stepped forward, boots clicking once on the concrete. She looked up, just once, then lowered her gaze again. He didn't speak, didn't ask who she was. He didn't need to. His eyes dropped to the bag, the patch. That faint gold thread, frayed by sun and salt and time. And just below it, now clearly visible, a folded strip of fabric. One color. One number. AOR 7, Task Group 121. His breath caught. Barely. He stood still for a full moment. Then, without a word, he brought his heels together and offered a slow, precise salute. She didn't return it. She didn't have to. The young SEAL saw it all. He saw the colonel lower his hand. He saw him nod, quiet and sharp. And then he watched him turn, not with confusion or questions, but with the weight of someone who had just seen a name unspoken. The colonel didn't explain. He didn't need to. But as he passed the admin desk, he said one thing to the officer nearby. "Update the records. She's not a guest. She's the reason we're standing." And then he walked on. Back at the bench, she shifted slightly. adjusted the strap on her bag, said nothing. And for the first time that day, no one else did either. The change didn't happen all at once. It began at the edges, the way all real shifts do. No announcement, no speech, just stillness. The colonel's salute had left a quiet in its wake. The kind that doesn't ask for attention. The kind that demands it without trying. A few people noticed, not everyone. One VA coordinator looked over, confused. The volunteer with the clipboard, the one who'd questioned her earlier, glanced at the colonel's retreating back, then down at the bench. His face changed, just slightly. The younger SEAL didn't move. But now others were watching him too. She remained seated. Nothing in her posture said, "Acknowledge me." She hadn't changed expression once since sunrise. And yet something had shifted. A pair of younger sailors approached the intake tent, laughing about some mishap in the mess hall. One stopped short. "Hey, is that?" The other nudged him. "Don't." Two officers stepped away from the registration table. One adjusted his collar. The other just nodded quietly in her direction. She finally stood. Not fast. Not dramatic. She reached for the canvas bag, lifted it with both hands, and slung it over one shoulder like it weighed nothing at all. The patch was fully visible now. The trident. The unit thread. The faded ink of something that used to be classified. As she walked past the rows of chairs, the conversation slowed. A few stood without realizing they were standing. She didn't look at them. Didn't pause. Just made her way toward the exit gate, not to leave, but to sit under the smaller flagstaff near the memorial plaques. She sat on the edge of the concrete planter, crossed one ankle over the other, rested her hands in her lap. The wind picked up slightly. Her jacket moved with it, exposing the inside lining, a strip of red cloth with 2 dates stitched by hand. The younger SEAL didn't follow her. He just stood still. Then, finally, he stepped back. Not away, just enough to leave her space. Behind him, no one spoke above a whisper. The colonel hadn't returned. He didn't need to. His words had already rewritten the morning. By early afternoon, most of the crowd had thinned out. People left in pairs. Some shook hands too tightly. Others looked over their shoulders as they walked away, eyes drifting back to the woman by the flags. She hadn't moved. The canvas bag was on the bench beside her now. She sat with her hands folded loosely in her lap. The sun had crept high, but she stayed in the sliver of shade cast by the flagpole. No one asked her to leave. No one told her where she could or couldn't sit. The younger SEAL lingered longer than he meant to. He wasn't sure why. He had things to do. He could have left hours ago. But something kept his boots planted. There was a quietness to her presence that didn't demand anything, but refused to be ignored. He remembered what the colonel had said. Not a quote, not a command. Just a line that stuck. "She's the reason we're standing." He let the words settle. Then, slowly, he walked to the edge of the courtyard, where the reception tables had been, and stood by the last row of folding chairs. Alone now. Just watching. And that's when it happened. A new group approached. 3 young sailors, fresh from check-in. Their uniforms still stiff from the box. Laughing, chatting, one of them holding a laminated map upside down. They didn't see her at first. One pointed toward the shaded bench. "That's probably admin," he said. "Let's ask her where the barracks are." The younger SEAL stepped forward. Just 1 pace. "Don't." They looked at him. He didn't raise his voice, didn't explain. But something in the way he stood stopped them cold. The tallest of the 3 blinked. "She's not." "She is." The others didn't respond. They didn't need to. They looked again, this time slower, more careful. And something passed between them that didn't require language. Respect born not from knowing, but from realizing how much they didn't. The younger SEAL didn't go back to the bench. He didn't need to. She was already rising to her feet. She didn't look at him, but she paused for a breath, one of those small, steady pauses that speaks more than a salute. Then she walked past toward the lot. Not fast, not slow. Just with the quiet rhythm of someone who'd never waited for recognition. The SEAL didn't follow. But his posture had changed. His hands were now folded behind his back. And for the first time, he understood why silence matters. The next morning, the bench was empty. No name on the roster. No signature on the sign-in sheet. The VA coordinator checked twice before shrugging and moving on. But the younger SEAL came early. Earlier than he needed to. He found the bench just as the light began spilling across the asphalt. The air was still, and for a moment, he wondered if maybe it had all been imagined. The jacket, the bag, the colonel's salute, the weight of that silence. Then he saw it, folded clean on the center of the bench. The jacket. Worn. Soft. The kind you don't buy. The kind that's carried too far to be replaced. Sleeves tucked with care. One cuff frayed at the seam. On top of it, something smaller. A coin. Not polished, not in a case. Just placed, as if it belonged there. He didn't touch it. Didn't need to. He recognized the weight before he ever felt it. A blackened challenge coin with an edge worn smooth by time. Just one phrase etched along the rim. Hold the line, then disappear. Under the jacket, barely visible beneath the coin's shadow, was a strip of cloth, cut from an old sleeve. The digits stenciled in fading black ink. 121. He sat slowly, placing both hands on his knees. No one else had arrived yet. No footsteps on the pavement. No chatter. Just the wind picking up in soft turns. Across the quad, flags stirred. The seal stayed seated. Not in reverence. Not in grief. In understanding. This wasn't about medals or recognition. It never had been. It was about presence. The kind that leaves something behind without leaving a name. Later that morning, a new recruit approached. Lost. Holding a clipboard, eyes wide. He looked at the seal, unsure. Sir? I'm looking for intake? The seal looked up. He didn't smile. Didn't speak right away. Just studied the boy's face. Saw the hunger, the nerves, the weight he hadn't earned yet. Then he pointed across the lot, toward the admin tent. That way, he said quietly. Take it slow. Pay attention. The recruit nodded. Thank you, sir. The seal didn't answer. Not out of pride, out of something else. As the boy walked off, the seal glanced down at the jacket beside him. The patch still showed, faint trident. Edges worn to thread. He didn't move it. Didn't pick up the coin. He just sat. And when others began to arrive, volunteers, officers, civilians, they gave the bench a wide berth. Not out of fear. Out of respect. By noon, no one had spoken her name. But everyone knew the story now, or at least enough of it to walk a little quieter. At 1,400 hours, someone placed a small brass plaque under the seat. No ceremony. No cameras. It said only this. One of ours waited here. And we're still listening.